The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome
Hello.
to our webinar. Eva and I are here, and we've got Michael on our staff. And I see a good representative of attendees. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to start. This is going to be our last webinar in this series on chart delineation. It's our 10th webinar, I believe, right, Eva?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. We, of course, have an earlier series, too, that went like 18 webinars. But anyway, I'm going to start this one out. I'm going to finish the labors of Hercules. We still have Aquarius and Pisces to go. And then Eva is going to wrap our series up with a discussion on the crosses and the reversal of the wheel. So, okay. So let me switch over, switch computers here, if I'm smart enough. Okay, there we go.
Perfect.
Okay, so this is the Aquarian labor to clean the Augean stables. When Hercules approached the realm of King Augeas, he found that the stables hadn't been cleaned in years. The stench was terrible. The pastures were so amply dunged, as they put it, that no crops could grow. In consequence, there was pestilence sweeping the land, wreaking havoc with the humans that lived there. So as he sought out King Augeas, he was met with distrust and disbelief. You say that you will do this mighty task without reward? The king declared suspiciously. I have no faith in those who make such boasts. The king thought that Hercules was here to take his throne, but even then he was willing to let Hercules do the work. But the king wanted a bargain struck, and he said that if Hercules could do the task, we've got some background noise here. Eva, I think it's you. I'm not sure.
Really?
I'm not
Should
sure.
I take off my headphones?
No, just mute yourself.
Okay, let me do that.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so the king wanted to strike a bargain, and he said that if Hercules could do the task within a day, that the king would give him 1/10 of his cattle. If Hercules failed, his life and fortune then belonged to the king. So Hercules wandered through this blighted place. He saw a cart go by that was piled high with dead, the victims of this pestilence. He saw 2 rivers, the Alpheus and the Peneus, flowing nearby, and an idea flashed in his mind. By great exertion, he succeeded in diverting both of these streams so that they poured their waters through the dung-filled stables of King Augeas. The rushing torrents swept away that long accumulated filth, purging that fetid muck. And just like that, within a single day, the impossible task was performed. When Hercules returned to Augeas, the king scowled, claiming that Hercules had tricked the king and that the rivers did all the work, not Hercules. He refused to pay Hercules as promised, and he banished him from the kingdom. Hercules, not doing it for pay, went home, since he had successfully completed his task. A server of the world you have become, his teacher told Hercules. You have gone on by going back. You have come to the house of light by yet another path. You have spent your light that the light of others might shine. The jewel that the 11th labor gives is yours forevermore. Okay, so like all of these, let's talk a little bit about the meaning of the myth. Having common sense, which all initiatives have, Hercules contemplated the problem. The filth represents the accumulated dross that man has created on the mental, emotional, and physical levels. The two rivers, the water of life and the river of love, must be released so that the condition in which the people live is improved. But as we saw with the king, there's no appreciation for the advanced worker. People fear what they don't understand. Hercules broke down barriers by using the two rivers. Now, in our present time, for the first time, humanity is a coordinated personality unit with the mind, emotional nature, and physical body functioning as one. And those are the symbolic stables that haven't been cleaned in years. Hercules broke down the barriers. That's the first thing that has to happen in the Aquarian age. We're just beginning to do it. We're just beginning to think in broad terms, to quit being exclusive. Well, some of us are. Emerging in a world where groups of men and women everywhere who are wrestling with themselves in order to become inclusive. Because the Aquarian age, nations as we know them now will have to go. Nations fighting for themselves and for what they want, nation against nation. The cultivation of patriotism, which we see so much of right now, that's the cultivation of hatred. We have to teach people that they're human beings with certain responsibilities. Breaking down barriers on a large scale has to be brought about by public opinion, and this is a slow problem that is largely emotional. We're now only emotional, watery, fluidic creatures that as yet are unillumined, and we're struggling with this separativeness. That's part of that outgoing race 6 Piscean energy. We're not yet able to be world conscious, to be in rapport with every phase of human thought, but we are going to get there someday. Cultivate the Aquarian spirit of leaving people free. Cultivate the capacity of trust. Cut out distrust, all of with whom we associate with. Believe in them and they will not let you down. Ascribe wrong motives and they will let you down, and it's going to be your own fault. So cultivate that Aquarian spirit of non-separativeness, of love, of understanding, of intelligence, of free from authority, of drawing out the best of every human being that we meet. Now, under the symbol of the bull, the age of Taurus, man had to wrestle with the animal in himself. Then our sun passed into the age of Aries, the ram, and we had that sacrificial lamb, showing that the sacrifice of the animal nature was beginning to succeed the concept of wrestling with the animal nature. Then the sun passed into the age of Pisces. The forces that played upon our planet at that time brought into the consciousness of man his essential duality and the link between the two parts of himself, those two fishes linked by the band. Christ came in Pisces to demonstrate to us perfectly what would be our ultimate achievement when we had linked those two together. The fish, the symbol of the second person, the fish, the avatar, and the fish swimming in matter, the symbol of the human being in incarnation. Having traced that wonderful idealistic evolutionary teaching down the last 5,000 to 6,000 years as a result of subjective forces playing upon humanity, we're now passing into that age of Aquarius, where through symbolism of water and purification, we're going to learn how to be the soul and not the human being. At the end of the Aquarian age, approximately 22,000 years ahead of us, can you picture what humanity is going to be like then? The animal nature, the emotional nature, and the mentality will be secondary. The soul is going to be primary. We have left behind the human kingdom at that point. Though we may be inhibiting our bodies, our consciousness will be focused in the fifth kingdom of nature, that spiritual kingdom. The opposite sign to Aquarius is Leo, the sign of the individual, the man who has found himself as a human being. He stood upon his own feet, was the center of his universe. Everything happened in himself. By that, he learned certain great lessons, that it was just possible he was not as important as he thought. And by subjecting himself to certain training, he could find a larger self. And so he passed on to Scorpio, where he was tested to see how much persistence he had. The outgoing characteristic of the aspirant is endurance, and the sign that calls for the utmost endurance is Scorpio. He triumphs in Scorpio. And in Sagittarius, he becomes the one-pointed disciple who cannot turn back. He goes on, and because he does, he climbs to the top of the mountain in Capricorn and undergoes that transfiguration. In Aquarius, the disciple becomes the serving master. He can be a master because he has learned to serve, and he can serve because he is a master. Those two go hand in hand. So, on his journey, Hercules, being the initiate, is pledged to do three things, which can be summed up as the outstanding characteristics of all true initiates. If they're not present in some measure, the man is not an initiate. So unselfish service. We're no longer interested in ourself. With our new perspective of universal consciousness, there is nothing for us to do but to assimilate the troubles of our fellow man and help them. Group work. This is something that we all know little about as yet. The world is full of organizations and societies that are happy training grounds for ambitious people, but the average group is a hotbed of jealousies, people trying to impress the others or get ahead. This is not group work. Group work is standing alone spiritually with complete forgetfulness of our own self and affairs and the welfare of the particular section of humanity with whom we are associated. It negates ambition. It negates upward movement in any lodge or organization, and it negates all assuming of official prerogatives. AAB suggests that the new groups will not have, I'm sorry, that's Alice Bailey for those of you who aren't familiar with the shorthand here, suggests that the new groups will not have any officials, but will work automatically because of the institutional spiritual interplay between the minds of the units in the group. Wouldn't that be lovely? Something we don't understand as yet, but hopefully we will and soon. And then the third thing is self-sacrifice. The true meaning of self-sacrifice is making the self holy. That deals with the self of the group and the self of the individual. That is the work of the initiate. From the top of the mountain in Capricorn, Hercules has to come down literally into material filth. Hercules had to aid in the cleansing of the world by the right direction of the forces of life through it. You appreciate that we are entering into the Aquarian age, where materialism as we know it will have completely died. Well, not until the close, but it will. And the whole life will be interpreted in terms of energies. We're dealing entirely with forces. We're all becoming practical occultists. The occultist who lives and works in a world of forces and who begins with the forces within himself. Aquarius is depicted as a man holding an inverted vase. The man inverts the vase, and out come the two streams of water, the river of life and the river of love. Those two words, life and love, are the two words that embody the technique of the Aquarian age. Not form, not mind, but life and love. Okay, now we're talking a lot about service here, so I just wanted to show a little bit about what service is. A treatise on white magic tells us that right motive leads to right service. It's an expression of love to the family, to the group, and it leads to service to humanity and eventually consciousness of the plan. Okay, Disciples in the New Age Volume 2 defines it as a scientific process, calling for full expression of soul powers on the physical plane, drawing the resources of our spiritual strength and wisdom in service. Although some of the world's greatest servers, they do this instinctively. Their brain consciousness is unaware of the hierarchy in the plan. Just as some esoteric students study too much without actually serving. Dinah 2 also suggests that it's a matter of attitude, of the personality to the soul, of the integrated man to humanity, and of the disciple to the hierarchy. Okay, let's look at Aquarius in context of everything that we've learned about it. It's the will to serve, first the lower and then the higher self. It's world service. It's individual consciousness transmuted into group consciousness. The negative traits, unpredictable, inconsistent, detached, stubborn. Positive traits, friendly, humanitarian, intelligent, inventive, independent. Esoteric concepts are distributing the energies of life and love, that group awareness, group responsibility, universal consciousness, universal relationships, and unselfish service. Aquarius has Uranus as the exoteric ruler, and a keynote from the angle of the form is, let desire in form be the rule. Jupiter is the esoteric ruler, and the keynote from the angle of the soul is now, water of life am I poured forth for thirsty men. The switch here is from being flitting here and there for better and more radical experiences, searching for change, rebelling against the status quo, to one of truly becoming a magnanimous server of all. Earlier, we looked at Leo and how it's self-mastery in preparation for selfless service, and now we're considering its opposite, Aquarius, which stimulates that group awareness and world service. That axis that eventually needs to be balanced and then recognized as the same line that has, of course, a joint purpose, is one of building that self-mastery specifically for the purpose of our usefulness to the group in world service. Okay, Eva, did you have anything that you wanted to say about Aquarius before I moved on to Pisces?
Just a tiny little bit, actually. You spoke of the axis between the polar opposites of Leo and Aquarius, and I just want to go into the symbolism a little bit here. We, in the form, in the body, Leo tends to represent the heart. And the heart has basically two valves or two areas, the aorta and the vein. One goes in, one goes out. And when you think back to the Leo labor, remember there were two openings to the cave. So the cave represents the heart, and then there were the two openings. Now you go to the opposite, which is Aquarius. Aquarius represents the circulation. So Leo is the heart, Aquarius is the circulation. And how better depicted is that than the rivers, which run waters and flow. They flow through the system. And it's interesting that you referenced two rivers. And if we look at the glyph of Aquarius, we see two wavy lines. Again, the duality, the dual is represented just like in the heart there are the two openings. Here there are the two waves. The other thing worth mentioning is that even though this is an air sign, air represents mentality, the mind, there is so much reference to water, waters of life, and even those little waves look like water. It could be waves of water. So for such a long time, Aquarius has so much to do with our emotions and cleaning up those emotions before we can actually start using the mind objectively, which is the purpose of Aquarius, to be able to think and to be able to serve without being caught up in so much of our dross or the filth, as was referred to before. So again, there were two rivers, the river of life and the river of love. Again, the duality we see here. And I think that's it for the moment.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the Pisces labor? Okay, I don't see any hands, so I'm going to move on. Okay, this is the capture of the red cattle of Geryon. Within a temple, Hercules made offerings to Helios, who is the god of fire and the sun. For 7 days he meditated, and then a favor was bestowed on him. A golden chalice fell upon the ground before his feet. Within the safe protection of the golden chalice, he sailed across the tossing seas to Eurythia, far away. It didn't take him long to find the grazing cattle, guarded by the shepherd Eurytion and the double-headed dog Orthus. The dog attacked him when Hercules approached, but he killed him with one blow. Then Eurytion, fearful of the brave warrior who stood before him, asked that his life be spared. Hercules conceded his request. Driving the cattle before him, he turned toward the sacred city. Not too far in this process, he saw a distant cloud of dust that rapidly grew larger. Surmising that the monster Geryon had come in mad pursuit, Hercules turned to face his foe, breathing fire and flame from all 3 heads at once. Geryon hurled a spear at Hercules and almost hit its mark. Stepping aside, Hercules was able to evade it. Then he let an arrow fly, and it seemed to burn the air as he released it and struck the monster squarely in the side, piercing all 3 bodies at once and killing the monster. Hercules returned to his task to herd the cattle toward the sacred city. He faced difficulty again and again as the cattle strayed often, so Hercules would have to leave the herd to hunt them down. Across the Alps he drove the cattle and into Italy. As he progressed on his way, he stopped whenever he found injustice and dealt with whatever evil he found, riding the balance as he went. At times he lost his way. He turned back, retraced his steps, and journeyed on. Weary by this most exacting labor, Hercules returned home at long last, and his teacher was there waiting for him. Welcome, O Son of God, who is also a Son of Man. The jewel of immortality is yours. By these 12 labors have you overcome the human and put on the divine. Home have you come, no more to leave. The human labors ended, your cosmic task begins. And from out of the council chamber came a voice that said, well done, O Son of God. So, his cosmic tasks begin. We're never done. We have more, whichever step we get to, we have more and more and more. Okay, so the meaning of the myth. He received his orders. Pisces is a sign of obedience. His orders to bring the cattle across land and water to the sacred city. So here we see the power of the words again. Land is matter and water is emotions and desires. Hercules sailed to the island in a golden cup, and when he arrived there, he climbed to the top of a mountain and spent the night in prayer. He prepared via meditation, invoking his soul. Then he killed the monster, but did not kill the shepherd. The symbolism of the red cattle is the lower nature, an outstanding characteristic of humanity. They're guarded by the shepherd, which is the mind. The two-headed dog represents the matter aspect and the psychic nature. The mind can still be the shepherd of the cattle, but the two-headed dog, the psychic emotional nature and the matter aspect, they had to be deprived of any power. The shepherd still had power, something a person in incarnation will need to develop the mind, and then use it as the interpreter of that spiritual energy from the soul. Okay, let's talk just a few minutes about what it means to be a savior. How is Hercules a world savior? He had a vision of something that he had to do. He sees humanity owned by a monster, that threefold personality united, but not yet controlled by the soul. This is progress. The union of the three lower vehicles and the emergence of that personality is progress. But still more progress is needed to flood the four with the light of the soul. We can see this best in the story of Jesus, a human being in rapport with the soul, who, like Hercules, becomes a transmitter of light to the sons of men. Eventually, as we all follow these footsteps on the path, we can envision the concept of humanity as a whole, with all minds held steady in that light, transmitting to the lower kingdoms in nature that spiritual energy which will raise them up into heaven. That's the work of humanity. We are so occupied with our own problems that we forget this larger picture. Remember, the form aspect was killed. The unlawful keeper of the cattle was killed, but the shepherd and the cattle were redeemed and raised up in the golden cup. And here you have the Holy Grail, the most exalted symbol. And so the work was accomplished. The world Savior had fulfilled his function. He had lifted up humanity. That's what all world saviors have done. They all did what to a great extent the Christ did. The work is slow, it's plodding for world saviors, but time means nothing to them. The term world savior has now been associated with the thought of the emergence of a great Son of God out of the Father's home, called by the need of humanity to do a great work. Down the ages, they have actually come. They've dwelt in physical bodies, they've worked through an emotional nature, and have been exceedingly intelligent. They have, by their lives, set an example that we all may follow. Their words have sounded the message that humanity needed in order to take the immediate next step forward. In their acts, they've given demonstration of service, gone about the world doing good. Their names have stayed with us down the ages, remembered for thousands of years. Alice Bailey speculates in her lecture that this labor has not yet been completed, that the accomplishment still lies ahead, and that humanity, the human monster, is now ready for salvation and the real work of the world Savior. The waning of the Piscean and the waxing of the Aquarian age can happen, both of them led by the same world teacher, the Christ. Okay, so the journey. The sign Pisces marks a triangular place in the heavens. It's a symbol of reality. The sign rules the feet, and hence the idea of treading the path and attaining the goal has been the underlying spiritual revelation from the Piscean age. Pisces is also the sign of death in various aspects. The death of the body sometimes, or maybe it's that old foolishness has come to an end, or an undesirable friendship will cease. Devotion to some religious form or thought that has held you can now end, and you'll emerge and set your feet upon a new path. It's the sign of death to the personality. If we see the reality through the veils of the personality, we can let it go. DK tells us that there are 3 signs of salvation in the zodiac. First, Leo, where the word goes out to the human being, work out your own salvation. The man determined to stand on his own legs, he becomes egocentric and assertive, all necessary to salvation, because only by trying out his own equipment is he going to arrive at the point where he gets this broader perspective that's eventually going to be needed. The second sign of salvation is Sagittarius, the sign of service and silence, where the assertive man, tired of talking to himself and pushing himself forward, he loses sight of himself in the goal, and then he silently serves. And then we come to the third sign, Pisces, that of the world saviors. This labor brings Hercules that most exalted symbol, the Holy Grail. Per Light of the Soul, the object of human evolution, I can't talk tonight, is to bring the Christ force into full manifestation upon the physical plane through the lower vehicles, serving as the receiver and container of the life of God. Sounds a lot like the Holy Grail to me. And so ends this labors of Hercules. He was tested over and over again. His lower nature was refined and redeemed. His personality gave way to the soul, and he became a server and then a savior. Sorry, my voice was going. Okay, so let's look at the Pisces summary. Pisces is duality, fluidity endowed with instinctual consciousness. It's mediumistic. Polarized mind unawakened, intuition dormant, death of the personality, release of the soul from captivity, in Christ, the world savior. Negative traits, escapism, idealism, oversensitivity, pessimism, laziness. Positive traits, imagination, kindness, compassion, intuition, a sensitive nature. Esoteric concepts are lower psychic powers transmuted into higher spiritual faculties. Mediumship into mediatorship, clairvoyance into spiritual perception, clairaudience into mental telepathy, death of all attachments and liberation of the soul for service. Pisces has Jupiter and Neptune as the exoteric ruler, and a keynote from the angle of form is go forth into matter. Pluto is the esoteric ruler, and the keynote from the angle of the soul is now I leave my father's home, and turning back I save. Sorry. The switch here is from swimming in matter, immersed in it for the experience's sake, to relinquish all the influences which hold us to this wheel of birth and rebirth. It's a release from the control of the mutable cross. Pisces is the expression of soul consciousness, and its polar opposite is Virgo, the birth of the soul in the cave of the heart. And the axis that needs to be balanced is the joint, and the joint purpose of it is one of nurturing the soul within the heart and bringing it into conscious manifestation. Okay, Eva, would you like to say something about Pisces?
Actually, no, you covered it all. I was going to talk about the Holy Grail and death, and you did a super job covering that. So thank you, but no.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? All right, I have just a couple of more slides to go, Eva, before I turn it over to you. If I can make it through it without coughing. I just want to remind everybody why it is that we study the Hercules myth. Okay, we see the progress from the mental plane through the emotional plane and out into the physical plane. And every single person goes through this. The work is hard, it's slow, and it's carried forward under great difficulties, often in blind ignorance of the forces that are being released and the results that need to be achieved. But step by step, we're led along the path and self-knowledge develops. Our character and our nature are tested until the qualities that characterize the form are muted into those that reveal the soul. And that is brought out so beautifully in the Hercules labors. So what we learned was the first 4 signs are preparatory. Equipped with the faculty of mind in Aries, desire in Taurus, arrives at essential duality in Gemini, and enters the human kingdom in Cancer. The next 4 signs are physical plane struggle. Self-consciousness and individualism emerge in Leo, nurturing of the Christ within in Virgo, trying to balance the pairs of opposite in Libra, and then overcoming illusion in Scorpio. And then the 4 signs are signs of achievement, going straight for the goal in Sagittarius, scaling the mountain of initiation in Capricorn, becoming the world server in Aquarius, and the world savior in Pisces. And as we saw Hercules on the path, we saw the changes that happened to him as he proceeded along the path of probation and then discipleship. He set out confident, way too confident, little realizing the magnitude of his task. He was unprepared for failure. He was not only impulsive, but he's not always successful. He fails and has to redo some labors. In some cases, he finishes, but finishes badly. He's still susceptible to glamour and illusion, but he's solidly on the path of discipleship. He's set on performing these 12 acts of service for humanity. And then the last thing that I would like to say is remember when you're looking at your own astrology, that by combining the astrological and symbolic stories that we've studied, the tests of everyday life are shown to us. Vivid expressions of the signs, where the myth takes place, what the tests are, and how we solve each problem. Each sign subjects us to the influences of certain forces and confers certain tendencies. So let's take what we've learned about that and see how the moon sign labor, your moon sign labor, describes the lessons of your past patterns that encompass the prison of your soul. How your sun sign labor describes the challenges of your personality, what you intended to work on this lifetime, and how the ascendant sign labor points to the soul qualities that you want to cultivate. So I hope that that's left you with a lot to think about as we went through all 12 labors. Okay, Eva, over to you. Do you want me to switch now, make you the presenter?
Yes, please. Well done. So much appreciated. I enjoyed the expansion that you did in this series of the labors. I think it made it very practical and much more easy for all of us to understand. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Well, thank you. I forgot to ask if anybody had any questions again, but I don't see any, so okay.
So let me play around with this. As I'm playing around with this and getting started, I do want to mention that this particular webinar or this particular presentation on the crosses has yet not been offered through the Moria Federation. I've offered it to other opportunities that I've had. I do want to mention how I think this is a very important piece, because we hear and we read so much about references to the crosses, and yet the only thing we really understand and know is that, you know, our sun sign is in a particular cross, or our ascendant and our moon are in a particular cross. But the Tibetan tries to teach us in his books that we should look at the crosses through the consciousness aspect. And so that's the approach that we're going to be taking here, is that the crosses represent consciousness. So it's irrespective right now as to what sign you have as a sun sign, ascendant, or moon. That is not the way we are looking at this. So how are we going to see this? Try to use color. The color represents also the aspect. So for the mutable cross, it applies to the average man. The fixed cross applies to advanced man or a disciple. The cardinal is for masters, or those that have achieved and are guiding the race of men, just like Hercules did at the end. So it's interesting that what a great segue that BL offered in her summary at the end. She talked about manifestation and how we are incarnated, and we start first with Aries as initiating the cycle of manifestation. It's the beginning of the zodiac. It's where the first impulse is awakened, and the initial idea to institute activity takes form. Why idea? Because we're starting with the mental plane. Aries is the birthplace of ideas, and a true idea is in reality a spiritual impulse which takes form, both subjective and objective. In Aries comes the will to incarnate. So this is the beginning of incarnation from the very beginning, not just every incarnation that we take, but from the very beginning. The idea to incarnate originates in Aries, and it's on the mental plane. So the idea has to come first, just like we often say that God had the idea, had the thought to create our universe, right? He had to have that thought first, and then everything followed. So the individual entity has not yet manifested into a physical form. So as has been said, it starts on the mental plane in Aries. And in the sign Taurus is where the emotional or the desire is awoken, or not developed. It's still not developed, but it's impulsed in the new person waking up, incarnating. And in the sign Gemini, they emerge as vital energy entities. Vitality. Gemini has a lot to do with our etheric. Then they take physical form in Cancer. So all souls as individual entities come into human incarnation for the first time in the sign of Cancer. And it's into the ocean of physical plane existence. So this is the creative process. It becomes solidified from the top down, from the mental plane right down into incarnation into the physical plane. So the objective of the evolutionary process and reincarnation is to fully develop. What is it that we need to develop? Personality consciousness, which then expands into soul consciousness, and then into the spiritual awareness. So these represent the three aspects. And all of this is achieved through the three crosses. So again, it's an evolutionary approach that we're taking here. We're looking at consciousness as consciousness develops. the early part of our evolutionary phase takes thousands of lives or incarnation, and it's on the mutable cross. Here we have opportunity to experience being born in each sign, even though we're on the mutable cross in our consciousness. Let me repeat this in a different way, because this is a big piece here. It doesn't matter what sign you're on. You are born into, you're born through the mutable cross in consciousness, even though you can be born in a cardinal sign like Aries or Capricorn, or a fixed sign like Aquarius or Leo. It doesn't matter. It's the consciousness that's trying to be developed here, and it's on the mutable cross for thousands and thousands of lives. What is being developed? The personality. So the mutable cross offers us the third aspect. That's why we had it in green. Green tends to represent the third aspect. And believe it or not, it moves in a clockwise direction from Aries to Taurus via Pisces. And I'll go over that a little bit later in a different way so that we do get it. This means that whatever sign one is born under, whether on the mutable, fixed, or cardinal crosses, the individual is still considered moving through the mutable cross, and then much later through the fixed cross. When our consciousness is upon the fixed cross, perhaps there are hundreds of incarnations versus the thousands that we would have on the mutable cross. When the level of consciousness has been determined for a person, then the astrologer knows which of the first two crosses, either the mutable or the fixed, the person is on. That becomes an important piece for every astrologer. DK tells us it's so important for us to know where your subject is at in the point of consciousness. Where are they at on the ladder of evolution? And it becomes clearer as we start to understand evolution through these crosses. By the time one is considered to be mounting the cardinal cross, he is one with the life that ensouls our planetary life, and there is nowhere else to go. I've just given you an overview here of the three crosses, and we're going to take them in much greater detail so we can understand what is being said here. So I've kind of covered this last paragraph here. So whatever sign is you're in and whatever cross, it doesn't mean that that is the cross in terms of evolution that you're on. So through evolution and reincarnation, we expand. What do we expand? Personality consciousness. Eventually it expands to soul consciousness and then into spiritual awareness. This is a repetition of what I said earlier. How? Via the three crosses. Am I going? Yes, the right direction. So the mutable cross, thousands of lives, third aspect. The fixed cross, it's in blue. It's the soul. It references the soul and represents the disciple. It's the second aspect. And we know that the second aspect is the love aspect. And the third, which would really be the first aspect, is the cardinal cross. And it has to do with the life principle. So the direction of the mutable cross follows the natural direction based on the precession of the equinox, from Aries to Taurus via Pisces, in a clockwise direction. This mutable cross is also referred to as the common cross, or the cross of the hidden Christ. These are all synonymous terms. The masses, or average humanity, are on this mutable cross. It's the cross of repeated incarnations. Why? In order to experience life via various signs. And the only rulers that affect these average humanity are the orthodox, or what we call the exoteric rulers. That's why, again, it's important for the astrologer to know where someone is at. Remember, this is average humanity. So an average person who wants to have their chart read, by asking questions, one would get a sense of how much soul is actually moving through that individual. They would then know how to approach looking at the chart. I'm going to read that and maybe explain it a little bit. Blind to the larger picture, swamped by emotions, interested only in I, me, and mine. The focus is on material things, the physical body, and sex. Does this not paint a picture? Well, you're Americans. I'm Canadian, so I don't want to say anything, but you know what I mean. The life for long ages is selfish and self-centered. One's efforts are for oneself and for one's own satisfaction and personality enterprises, and this becomes steadily stronger and stronger. Now remember, before soul can start to affect an individual, you have to become a fairly integrated personality. You have to reach that Leo stage of identity as a personality. So this is an important part of the growing process, of the maturing process, to develop a personality, to become effective out in the world, to be able to stand in your own feet and contribute to the world, even if it's in a selfish way. This is the present situation for what we call the masses, or average humanity. By learning how to develop our physical form, how to develop our emotional form, and how to develop our mental vehicle or body or form, it leads to successive and continuous expansions of consciousness. We expand, we become more aware. Instinctual or mass consciousness merges eventually into intellectual consciousness. See, we go from instinct to intellect and eventually to intuition. But that instinct, which is that animal nature, is still all part of the human development phase. This is also where one's conscience is being developed. And what is a conscience? A conscience makes you think, should I really be doing this? How many people have a conscience? We know of all the people that are in jail, all the people, predators. Do they really have a conscience? If they had a conscience, would they do the things that they do? A conscience is a very, it's a marker along the path of our development, and it's still all in the mutable cross. So he metaphorically mounts the mutable cross, and his long term of imprisonment in form begins, and the lessons of servitude must be learned. He goes on learning until he has transformed servitude into service. So as I said, it's thousands of lives. This takes a long, long time. What is the goal of the mutable cross? Is to develop and fuse the personality so that a coordinated and integrated personality will emerge. It's still governed by desire. And what do you learn? You learn the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus. It is what is being unfurled and developed during the mutable cross stage. And you learn that through earthly experiences. You know, you can tell someone all kinds of advice, but we all know until the person experiences it for himself, he doesn't really get it. Well, this is the process. These are the incarnations that force an individual to learn via experience earthly things. So of course it takes in the physical form, it takes in the emotional form, and a development of the mind, of the mental. The intelligence aspect is being developed here. So you're starting to get a picture, right, of what an individual goes through as they learn to develop and to grow and to expand their personality on the mutable cross. Now, I wanted to show you the precession of the equinox. It moves clockwise from Aries to Taurus. And it's interesting that BL covered that as well in her talk. So if we go back to Taurus, and I've got Taurus right here. This is a what we call a flat chart. So it's a chart that starts with Aries that you're all very familiar with, and ends with Pisces if we were to go this direction, which most of astrologers, you know, go in this direction. But the precession of the equinox goes in the other direction. It goes clockwise. So let's look at Taurus. I've got Taurus here on the cusp. This was the age of the bull and the golden calf and Egypt's greatness. And you remember how the Jewish people who fled Egypt, after Moses came down, he found that they had built the golden calf because it was the bull and the calf that was the vibration of that particular era, which every era lasts approximately 2,500 years. Those are approximations. We go to the next cusp, which is Aries. This was the dispensation of the Jewish people. And we had the ram. And as BL pointed out, this was sacrifice versus being wrestling with the animal nature. Then we moved into the Piscean age, and this was the birth of Jesus, birth of the Christ consciousness. And now we're moving into the Aquarian age. So you can see it moves in this direction. This is the same direction that we move on the mutable cross. We go from Aries to Pisces, from Pisces to Aquarius. But depending on when you are born, you don't necessarily follow it sequentially. Just like now, whatever cross you are on, you don't follow the pattern in a sequential order. But because you have thousands of lives, you learn whatever you need to learn within the sign that you are born in, but you're learning lessons pertaining to the development of the personality. So here we go. The direction is clockwise from Aries to Taurus via Pisces, the same as the precession of the equinox. So the mutable cross, or the common cross, they lead to learning the aspect of intelligence. Intelligence is the first thing that you need to learn in order to become a fairly coordinated and integrated personality. We go back to the Stone Age. I mean, there was no intelligence then. Man had to function on the physical plane, and it was all physicality and vitality. And then if we were to look at society, we would see the development of the emotional nature. Even the races developed in that way. So you had the Lemurian race, which was the development of the physical form, and it took all kinds of trials and experimentation to get the form to be what the gods kind of thought it should be. And then in the Atlantean consciousness or time, the emotional body, the emotions started to develop, there was hardly any mind there at all. Everything was telepathic and emotional and desire. And all of these consciousness are being brought into now the Aryan race, which is who we are, and that's where the development of the mind has to be. So here at the mutable cross, we're learning all of those things. What I have tried to do here is to just show you how the development moves. So in Pisces, which is, let's say, the first of the arms of the mutable cross, you go from negative impressionability to the power to serve intelligently. And then if we go to Sagittarius, this is a progression, as you see, from gluttony, desire, to intelligent and inspired vision. And then in Virgo, from the domination by the material life to intelligent awareness of the divine within, because this is where the Christ consciousness eventually is born. In Gemini, from instability to duality, and then intelligent recognition of something higher. So we have here some hypothetical examples of people on the mutable cross. Exoteric planets rule those on this cross, as well as the centers below the diaphragm are the ones that are being developed. That's where those petals are opening up, and the individual can access and develop the qualities associated with those centers. So those who are emotional have not developed their minds to the extent is being used, to the extent that it's being used effectively, and have weak wills. Why weak wills? Because the will comes from a development of the mind. When someone is willful, they are using their mind as well as their emotions to be willful. This may even include people who are spiritual, such as mystics and churchgoers. And a few examples here: Vincent van Gogh, he was tortured; Marilyn Monroe, Marlon Brando, Greta Garbo, and I'm sure that the list can go on to a lot of politicians and so on. The more advanced, in other words, more development of the personality, are not necessarily better, but they're intelligent people with strong personalities, still driven by desire for money, for power, and for sex. Very material focus, as we can see. So we have all the bad guys, right? We have Hitler, Stalin, Milosevic, Ariel Sharon in Israel, Netanyahu, Arafat, Henry Kissinger, George Bush Jr., Tony Blair, John Edgar Hoover, Hugh Hefner, Donald Trump. So trying to give a variety, although this is very political here, of people who are more advanced, whose intelligence is quite well developed, but where the soul is not yet a factor. And I'm still working with the mutable cross, because I'm going to ask for questions as soon as I'm finished with the mutable cross. I think this is the last slide. Since it is personality development on the mutable cross only, there we know the exoteric or the orthodox rulers rule this cross. So what are we seeing here being emphasized? We have Jupiter, which is the exoteric ruler of Pisces. We have also in brackets Neptune for the masses. But if you're looking at individual development, we really would look at Jupiter. In Sagittarius, you have Jupiter. In Virgo, you have Mercury. And in Gemini, you have Mercury. Those are the rulers of the cross. And what is it that we're seeing here? We're seeing touches of soul via Jupiter. Jupiter brings in faith. It brings in something larger than oneself. So that we're seeing the beginnings, the touches of something greater than oneself. And of course, we see the mind development via Mercury. This has to eventually lead to intelligence. From instinct to intelligence is what is being developed on the mutable cross. So it parallels, as I said, the unfurling and the opening of the intelligence petals of the egoic lotus. So now, before I move on to the next cross, are there any questions here?
I don't see
Are
any.
you helping me with that?
Yeah, I'm looking, and there aren't any.
Okay. So that means you understand this. This is great because so many people don't get this reading through the books. And we tend to always look at a chart going in an anti-clockwise direction. We don't look at a chart going in a clockwise direction. So moving on.
But
yes.
I'm sorry. I would like to specify one of the reasons we do that, and we're actually kind of looking at it in two different ways, is because, as you mentioned, you're talking now about the crosses of consciousness.
Right.
And when we're looking at the chart itself and we're moving in the other direction, it's not that our consciousness, that our evolution is moving in that direction. It's that that's the way the chart is set up. And those crosses on that chart, all the signs, those are the crosses of our modes of activity. So it's different than what you're talking about here. With all that is consciousness.
All that is true. It's just that when we do look going clockwise, we would see the way an individual moves, let's say from Scorpio to Libra. So it would be going through certain tests, and then in Libra, they have to learn to balance what they had learned in Scorpio. And so many times I know that when I look at a chart, I'll make reference to the way a person has developed because now they're in a particular sign and so on. It's hard to do that when we don't look at a chart going clockwise. It's very hard to do that. And so we ignore that. But as long as we understand that that is something that Tibetan tells us, that we should be looking at people in terms of what it is that they're going through, the crises that they're living, the opportunities that they have, and the direction that they're moving. Just another little piece here. But yeah, you're right. We only look at the modes in terms of activity.
Right. I like to think of it as on the mutable cross, we're going through all the signs in the wrong order, and we're expected to be a savior and a server before we've learned the tools that we need to use, because we're still on that cross of experience.
Right. Correct. Correct. Thank you. So each transition marks a point of crisis. And the crisis is in the individual. This is what I'm referring to, the various crises that we go through. When the time of transition from a mutable cross onto the fixed cross arrives, 4 things need to occur. A vast experience of life in the outer world. A person has to have had that because we learn through our experiences. Gradually growing dissatisfaction, which awakens in the consciousness. DK in his books in the Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1 and 2, primarily Volume 2, leads us to the various techniques of integration because we do go through these dissatisfaction. We become dissatisfied. We go through crises. This is where the achlary process comes in and all that kind of stuff, because a certain kind of dissatisfaction has to occur. And we don't necessarily recognize it as a dissatisfaction. We just know that we're going through a crisis. He or she turns to invocation, to aspiring to something greater than oneself. And most people go into mysticism, which is religion, right? So we see a duality. We see the lover and that which is beloved. So we see the ideal. We see, religion is just that, right? You're looking at something outside of yourself and something higher. And again, Conscience, remember, a reference to conscience is such an important indication of where someone is at in their point of evolution. So a conscience is developed, and something else that DK says, and I haven't pointed it out here, is responsibility. We see in the development of human beings a sense of responsibility. That's why we have babies. That's why we have children, so that we can learn responsibility. Now, many people, couples, you know, the man leaves. He cannot handle the responsibility. Many women leave, but they're left with, the women with their maternal nature are left usually to raise their children on their own. And many of them turn it to substance abuse because they just cannot handle their life. So the sense of responsibility is thrown and foisted upon them, because it is one of the ways that indication as to where someone is at in their point of evolution. And the desire eventually has to turn to love. So the mutable cause rules the path of probation for the average man, for the aspirant, and for the probationary disciple. The path of building character into the personality. So we all talk about how to build character, how to move from negative qualities or characteristics to virtues. This is the purification of the lower vehicles. This is prior to the first initiation. So our society right now is full of ways in which we purify our physical, etheric vehicle. Everybody knows now the various foods we have to eat, the diets. Every other day there's a new diet to improve our physical form, to purify that. Many of us are learning how to harness and how to work with our emotions, how to recognize when we're losing it. And of course, mentally, we know that through education, through greater learning, we expand the mind and we grow in awareness. So all of that is still character building and prior to the first initiation. Any of you that are signed up to course 140, that whole 140, for the first half a year, we're working on the path of probation. So this is exactly the point of evolutionary development that is still on the mutable cross. The probationary disciple is ready to be tested in Scorpio. Now remember, they're going clockwise. So Scorpio comes first as he prepares for the first initiation, transferring from the mutable cross and the path of probation onto the fixed cross, and then the path of discipleship. So we read that the individual, the probationary disciple, experiences a crisis or a burning ground. And this transference of the direction of the cross happens in Libra. Libra is like the fulcrum. It is the middle of the cross, so to speak. And it's known as an interval. The reversal of the wheel or a reorientation happens in a given life in the sign of Libra. Does that mean you have to have your sun sign there? Does that mean you have to have your ascendant there? Nothing is clear. We don't know. But it doesn't happen that quickly. Remember, it's taken thousands of lives to get to that point, to get to the point of being tested. Are you ready? Are you ready to, are you actually showing enough consciousness within yourself to be able to then step onto the fixed cross and to have the wheel reverse? And the wheel doesn't just suddenly reverse. There is a movement in both directions. Just try to imagine this. It's such a hard picture. You've got it moving in clockwise, and now it starts to rotate in the other direction. So you've got them at cross purposes. You still don't get off the clockwise direction, but now you're reversing it to the anti-clockwise direction. So Libra is that point that controls the reversal of the wheel. For there comes a moment in the cycle of lives wherein a point of balance is reached and a relative equilibrium is attained. And over this, Libra presides. This doesn't mean that the individual has totally reversed the direction of the wheel. It will take many lives for that to happen. So, as I said, one can be moving in both directions simultaneously. And so, in the early stages, one is considered a probationary disciple. So the fixed cross is the cross of the soul consciousness. This is what we need to develop, and to be to have our life eventually controlled by the soul. So here we have the direction anti-clockwise. This is the direction all of you are familiar with, moving from Aries to Taurus and so on. Desire here is spiraled up to aspiration, and the pull of the soul is that which spurs the individual on. It's the urge. I don't know if any of you have read The Law of Service, but service is a soul urge. This is the urge that comes from the soul that moves us. It's almost like you have no choice. The soul is what is pushing you and moving you forward. So here's some more names of this cross. It's the cross of discipleship. It's also the cross of the crucified cross. The arms of the cross lead to learning some aspect of love. So in Taurus, from desire to aspiration leads to the unfolding of love. And we see this in professions and business and the arts. And of course, Venus, its exoteric ruler, really helps in this area too. And of course, now we start to look at some of the esoteric rulers that start to influence the individual. And the esoteric ruler of Taurus is Vulcan. And Vulcan is that which hammers away. It hammers away at the personality to purify it, to make it a proper vehicle to be able to house now the soul that is developing within. We move to Leo, and remember, Leo is total identification. So you identify from the personality identification to the soul identification, and it stimulates creative ideas and projects. And in Scorpio, it brings triumph over glamour, over illusion, and the growing of love of humanity. In Aquarius, from personal desire to world service, just like BL spoke about Aquarius in her talk before. And again, it doesn't mean that you're only born in these 4 signs. You're born in every sign within that zodiac, but the orientation is towards developing some form of love. The fixed signs are very closely aligned to the establishment of right values. It is a cross of blinding light, of fiery pain, of bitter woe, and yet it's the cross of liberation. So it's the esoteric planets which rule this particular cross and rule the disciple. And so we have the bull in Taurus. We have the lion. And some of this is biblical. I mean, we've seen these pics all over the place, you know. We have the eagle and we have the Aquarius. And I think in the States you have both Scorpio. The eagle is an emblem, right? The eagle. And you have Aquarius, I think, on the ascendant. Canada has, I believe, Taurus as the sun sign of Canada. And there's a lot of this in the book, which one?
Destiny of
Thank you.
Nations.
destiny of the nation. So it's all laid out as to which cities have which signs, and there's a lot of this right now, of the fixed cross in a lot of the countries and a lot of the cities, because we need to develop love. This is where awakened humanity is at. The first 3 initiations take place on this cross. So, do you think you've had your Capricorn initiation on the mountaintop, the transfiguration, the 3rd initiation? If you haven't, you're still on this cross. Hypothetical examples of people on the fixed cross. Intelligent but sensitive people who aspire to something higher and finer, who have had major emotional crises in the life, who are dedicated to world service. So Princess Diana, Princess Anne, Prince Charles, Madonna, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Richard Gere, Whoopi Goldberg, Audrey Hepburn, Katharine Hepburn. I mean, this is just a small handful. I would say the majority of us. I would even put, although I do think she's had her 3rd initiation, and that would be Oprah in here. So she is a highly advanced human being, not just the intelligent and sensitive. She's advanced, so she's in the 2nd group. And I might even have her. I don't even remember what I did here. Yeah, I have Oprah. They identify with humanity as a whole, who are examples of unconditional love, powerful will, and who are highly intelligent, talented, creative, and successful, and who are effective in human rights on a global level, up to and including the 3rd initiation. So Albert Schweitzer, Albert Einstein, Margaret Mead, Winston Churchill, Gandhi, Mandela, Mother Teresa, Oprah as of late. And why do I say that as of late? Because she had a major crisis where her whole orientation changed. All of a sudden, instead of doing these dramatic sessions and interviews, she changed her whole format and started to do things that are much more soul-oriented. And she herself had I think it was the crisis with the cattle and cow and whatever that was that changed her. But anyway, she is a beautiful example who's someone who's had her 3rd. Gorbachev, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So you get an idea of the more advanced human beings and the ones that are still on the fixed cross, but they're starting to be a little bit more sensitive to the needs of humanity. So this is a very interesting way to see it. The phase of the mutable cross is down here. So this is where we have thousands and thousands of lives. This is average humanity. The phase of the fixed cross is there. Remember, I said only hundreds of lives? And then at the cardinal cross, there's nowhere else to go. Once you reach the cardinal cross, you become one who can serve the planetary life, and you make choices. This is where you make all these choices. You have all the initiations moving from the 4th and on, although the 4th you're never really on a cross. So let's say from the 5th and onwards, and you make decisions. Do you want to stay with the earth? Do you want to move on to other works elsewhere? So there's nowhere else to go. So those are the ones that have achieved. Eventually, they will be in the thousands too, just like in the mutable cross. So the squeeze, we are living the squeeze, and hence it's the suffering. It's the hardest cross to be on because, this is where you have crises. This is where you learn your lessons. This is where you now have a conscience, you have a consciousness, and when you become aware, you are aware. You are aware of the suffering in the world. You're aware of the suffering around you. If you don't have a conscience, you're not aware, and you're ignorant. But once you're not, it can be very painful. So I think I have one more slide here. Yeah. Rulers of the fixed cross. So although the esoteric rulers are the rulers of disciples, the exoteric rulers are still very strong and influential. So for Taurus, you have Venus. as the exoteric ruler, and you have Vulcan. For Leo, you have the sun, and in all cases, the sun veils. On a personality level, it's veiling Jupiter, where it's just faith and belief and its expansion. And esoterically, it veils Neptune, greater sensitivity to humanity, to the plight of humanity. In Scorpio, Mars and Mars. So you have the development of strength, power, eventually leading to courage. Courage to be able to tackle all the glamours and illusions that have to be tackled in Scorpio. The courage and the dare, being to have the dare and the fight and the spirit to be able to overcome all the tests and trials and to be triumphant. In order to be triumphant, you have to have a development of will, which Mars offers us in Scorpio. And then in Aquarius, you have Uranus. Aquarius thinks out of the box. It's a mental planet. And esoterically, you have Jupiter. So here is the larger. It takes in the idea of brotherhood and service to all of humanity. And remember what BL said, eventually it has to be love, waters of life and love. So will and love are working with the disciple on this cross. We see Mars, we see Uranus, we see Vulcan, and then all these love planets. Any questions?
I don't see any yet. Nope.
Okay. So the cardinal cross. So the first three initiations, which eventually lead to soul infusion, are taken on the fixed cross. The fourth initiation is on no cross. It's in the middle. Remember the number 4, harmony through conflict. It's that middle point. It's like the fulcrum of a teeter-totter. It's in the middle. The initiation is in limbo between the fixed and the cardinal crosses. Once a person has become fully anchored in his or her soul's orientation, he is said to mount the cardinal cross. So the life urge is now motivated by pure spiritual attraction and intention. And the life purpose of these initiates are in line with the planetary purpose. And no longer at this level are you thinking of your own personal needs. You're thinking of the greater good. It's the cross of the risen Christ versus the cross of the hidden Christ. I didn't even know that this thing does that. Isn't that cool? It's just jumping around so nicely. I had no idea what I did here. So the goal is to develop spiritual or monadic consciousness, and the life control is by spirit now, not any longer by soul. So you see the movement from personality on the mutable cross to soul on the fixed cross to spirit or monadic consciousness on the cardinal cross. The first divine aspect of will, power, is perfected in individuals on this cross, and the spirit, the soul, personality are fused into one unit, because soul, the causal body or the egoic lotus, no longer exists. So it's a personality that's totally infused by soul, and so you have the totally soul infused personality and spirit, and they become fused more and more as monadic consciousness starts to develop in these initiates. So the arms of the cross lead to some aspect of the will and the power. So from sublimation of the personal will to the will of God, and through Aries, and through Cancer, the identification, from identification of the masses that is early on to the will to serve the masses. And in Libra, from the unbalanced fiery passion to the will to serve the laws of God, because the planet that rules hierarchically here is Saturn, and Saturn is the law. And in Capricorn, from the personal ambition to working with the power of love. Isn't that an interesting word, love, for Capricorn? But the hierarchical ruler is Venus, and Venus is love. So we're going to see that now. Yes. Aries, Uranus, which is spiritual will. Cancer, it's ruled by Neptune. These are all the hierarchical rulers, and hierarchical rulers will start to influence the disciple around the third initiation. You don't have to wait till after. Around the third initiation, it starts to influence, and of course, once you're on the cardinal cross, those are your rulers. Libra is Saturn, which is spiritual law. And Capricorn, you have Venus. So you've come full circle here in Capricorn, which Venus brought us the spark of mind, and eventually, and it does rule the cosmic astral plane. And when you are already on the cardinal cross, you start to have resonance now with the cosmic astral plane, which we haven't got a clue what that is. We just read about it. So you start to move up, as they say. So hypothetical examples of people on the cardinal cross. I've put in the Dalai Lama, masters of the wisdom. So it would be all the masters that we're familiar with. Jesus, Maitreya, the Buddha, and so on. Maybe there are others, but these are the ones that I know for sure. So that's why I chose them. I don't think I have anything else. So any questions of any of this?
I don't see any questions.
So can you see yourself on the fixed cross in consciousness? That's the question to ask yourself. Are you developing soul? Are you developing greater consciousness within yourself? And I would say yes, or you wouldn't be here. But let's remember, the average humanity is still developing a personality. Okay.
Well, we have a really quiet audience today, but thank you for a very thorough presentation there on the crosses of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, I'm glad I had the opportunity to share this. I think it's an important piece, and I think that more people need to understand this, especially since there's so much reference to this, and it's not clear in the books.
Right, and you know, they fully need to understand that there's two different types of crosses
Right.
that are being talked about, and understand the context in each case. And you did a great job of showing that. And I think it wrapped up our series really well. We didn't have as many guest presenters as we did last time. Last time we had more people who were willing to present, and then we also had some students from Great Quest who presented their DHY papers. You know, a profile on a famous person. So, okay,
That's right.
We have a question here.
Yeah, I knew if I waited long enough, I'd get a question.
Please go ahead, Yvonne.
Well, thank you, Eva. That was wonderful. I do have a question. The two different types of crosses, I still don't understand that.
Okay, so when we look at our chart, and we know that we have planets that are on the mutable cross, like for example, I believe you have Virgo rising, right? So that basically just tells you the mode of activity. Mutable cross, looking at the chart, has to do with flexibility and changeability. If you are a Leo sun, then you know that you're on the fixed cross, and that has to do with fixity. You know, either stubbornness or not that readily to change one's mind and so on. So you look at the mode of activity, when you're looking at it in your chart.
Okay.
And then when you're looking at it in terms of the development of consciousness, where we're at in terms of our own personal development, then you look at these three crosses in that way. And as I think I've made it clear that we, being all the students at Moria Federation, are on this fixed cross. We are on the cross of developing soul, on the cross of developing consciousness and love.
Okay.
Are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Right. So that's how you would look at it in terms of consciousness and in terms of development of consciousness. So there's two ways to look at these crosses, and they're not that clear in the books, and that's why I felt that if I could bring greater clarity in the direction in which we are going and in our development and consciousness, it might clear up something as we read this in the texts. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. I have another question.
Sure.
When you say the development of consciousness, is that sort of synonymous with the heart opening to develop?
Of course it is. Of
Okay.
course it is.
So
Of course it is.
I have a question. Somebody that kills for blood sport, that enjoys killing things, and I'm thinking of somebody in my family that likes to go out and shoot harmless pigeons or pheasants that they let loose out of a cage, and he shoots them, and I say, why do you do that? He said, well, it's fun. They're fast. I said, you can shoot clay pigeons. I said, how could you shoot harmless little things like this, living things? So, and well, truthfully, this is my son, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question is not to look at just this one specific incident, but look at the way in which he lives his life. Is he living his life from a loving place? Is he living his life from his heart? Is he conscious of humanity and of his family in a way that's more than just responsibility?
Well, he's, as you know, he's a plastic surgeon.
Right.
And,
so you see, he's probably doing both. He's probably working both. You know, he might be a probationary disciple that is nearing the first initiation. Maybe he's already had his first initiation, where he, the first initiation is the birth of the Christ consciousness in the heart. But said in very practical terms, it's recognizing that you are more than your body. You are more than your form. There's something more to you than that. That's what first initiation is all about. There's something higher within you, whether it's, people call it soul or not, doesn't matter. But they recognize that there's more to them than just the form, just more than just the personality. Thing is to look at the way in which they live their life. Because a lot of people can't translate the way we treat animals to be similar to the way we treat human beings. You know, that requires awareness. It requires consciousness.
Yeah. I'm having trouble dealing with that. I says, you took the Hippocratic Oath. He says, that just applies to people. So
see, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people can't place animals in the same place as they put people in terms of it's a life. You know, it's killing a life.
Yeah. So I just wondered where that was, because I'm having trouble getting my mind around that one. How to deal.
He's probably, as I said, probably going in both directions. Like most of us in our early stages of development are still going in both directions. We're still developing the personality. We're still trying to purify the personality, change our bad habits to virtues, and we're still always honing that personality, integrating it more and more. But at the same time, we're developing the consciousness within us. We're opening our heart. We are becoming more aware of everything around us, and that is soul.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Okay, we have
Laura asks.
Yeah. Hold on just a second. Eva, for some reason you're blinking. Were you getting that too, Michael?
Yes, I was.
Okay. The minute you went out of full screen mode for your slides, you started blinking. And
Okay, let me put it back into full screen.
thanks. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Is that better?
Yeah, for right
Laura writes, Dear BL and Eva, thank you for the very interesting webinar. One question, please. Regarding the two directions for interpreting an astral chart, when you want to analyze the houses, you should go in a clockwise direction, right? The houses represent modes of activity, I suppose.
You know what? Since we have been trained to look at all the houses from a anti-clockwise direction, that's how we want to look at them. So the first house is the house that Aries would rule. The second house is the house the Taurus would rule. We still look in terms of the characteristics and the qualities associated with that house, which are similar to some degree to the sign that rules that house. So with Aries, it has to do with the head. Aries is the first thing. You are born head first out of the birth canal. So it deals with the head, and oftentimes with the form, and oftentimes with your own personality and identity, because that's being. So the sixth house is the house of Virgo, and that's the house of health. That's the house of pets and service. That's what Virgo's all about. So you would still treat the houses in an anti-clockwise direction.
I would just like to add that, the houses are the environment. And theoretically, we have the exoteric environment that all astrologers know and love so much. And then we have that higher correspondence, which we talk about esoterically, still in the same location. But theoretically, the more that we gain soul control, the less our environment triggers us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, by the time you reach the cardinal cross, you're not really looking at, you've already mastered the higher expression of the houses, and the environment isn't really that big of a deal for you anymore. Although, of course, we always, when we do an esoteric reading, we're always looking at the houses and what the relationships are being formed and the purpose of the house and everything.
Yeah, I would just add another word here, and as well as saying the environment, it's the arena in which you play out whatever. That is the arena, that is the area. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or?
I don't see any more. And Laura says thank you. So.
My pleasure.
Okay, here we go. Delara says, I have a question about veiling. How do we work with sun and moon in our charts?
Okay, that was something that we did present earlier on. If you do go back and listen to all our presentations, but we look at veiling from an exoteric perspective. We would look at if it's the moon, we would consider the moon the way it is. We know that the moon has to do with emotions, it has to do with our feeling nature, and so on, our securities, and the sun has to do with our ourself and our identity, and so on. Now, if it comes into the esoteric placement, so if it's in the moon in Virgo, let's say, the moon in Virgo veils. And what does it veil? It veils the possibility of 3 different planets. It would veil either Taurus or Neptune or even Uranus. And it's up to the astrologer to decide which one seems to apply more than another. So it's more in the esoteric placement that you would substitute the veiling. Not to say that you can't even look at the veiling of the sun, for example. I said the sun in Leo, from a personality perspective, does veil Jupiter. We are told that. So you could actually think in terms of where's the Jupiter? What sign is it in? How does it play out in my life? So you could play around with that as well. From an esoteric perspective, you would then look at Neptune. How does Neptune, if it's an ascendant, for example, Leo is an ascendant, then you would then look at the sun veiling Neptune, because as an ascendant, it's a sole purpose. So you would look at the esoteric more so there than the exoteric. Is there anything you want to add to that, BL?
Yeah, I just want to say, you meant Vulcan. You said Taurus a minute ago, but I just want to
Oh,
say
did I
that,
really?
yeah, I just want to
Thanks.
say that when I think of the moon, I think of the form, and so Vulcan is often exoterically veiling the moon because it represents the form and forging that form into what it is we need to do it in. And then I also like the analogy of the sun, um, the physical sun, Neptune, the heart of the sun, and Uranus
Hmm.
at the higher level, the central
Yeah,
spiritual sun.
spiritual sun,
So
right.
it's the development of it as it's veiling. But yeah,
Hmm.
it can get a little tricky because it does switch. It depends on the circumstances as to what might be veiled. Another thing I wanted to say about that is sometimes you can look at the aspects within your chart to see, if the sun itself has a relationship to Neptune or to Jupiter. It might indicate what it's veiling, and the nature of the relationship might help you. It'll tell you if it's a friendly relationship or if it's a testing relationship. The squares, of course, are going to be testing, and the trines and sextiles, that's a more friendly, beneficial relationship. So it can show you how they are interacting together in your chart.
Hmm.
But like Eva said, that's something we covered with all of the previous webinars. If you have the chance to go.
I hope that helps a little bit. We didn't go into that much detail, but it just an overview.
Excuse me, Dolores says thank you.
Oh, our pleasure.
Okay.
So that wraps it up.
That does wrap it up. Yvonne says, thank you, very informative. I appreciate all of you who've stuck through us for this 10 webinar series that we've done mostly last year. And we will get it up and posted to Makara within the next day or so. And I'll announce it on the Student Union, so you can see what the link will be, and you can, like we hope, go back and look at all the previous ones if you haven't done so already. As usual, we will include our slides because I know it's always good to have the cliff notes from the slides.
Right.
So thank you all for attending. Thank you, Eva, for putting this on with me, and we'll see you guys some other time.
Thank you all. So just to be clear here, when I close the computer, it should come on about the recording, right? I don't have to shut the recording. I'm sorry that I'm so dense when it comes to these things.
When I click in the webinar, it's going to automatically kick you out, and then you'll have to convert the recording. But my recording should be okay, except for a couple of times where your speaking was a little
Wompy.
garbled. Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah.
mine should be okay. I'll email you or Michael if I need a copy. Okay. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Terrific.
Thank you. And I will forward you this,
your slides.
My slides, and likewise, you do the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.